Antarational Bhagavatam ki jai. Harinam Sankirtan ki jai. Sri Rukmini Dwarkadish ki jai. Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Nittai Gauravimanandi. All glories to the Samal devotees. All glories to the Samal devotees. All glories to the Samal devotees. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Padasavadari. Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityanamani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pachani Vishesha Shunyavadi Pastacharya Satarni Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, second canto, chapter 2, entitled The Lord in the Heart. And today we're reading from text number 20. Nabhyam stitam hridhi ariropya tasmad udana Katyorasi tam nayan muni tato nusandaya diya manasvi swa talu mulam shanakair nayeta Nabhyam stitam hrijariropya tasmad Nabhyam stitam hrijariropya tasmad Udana gatyo rasitan nayan muni Udana gatyo rasitan nayan muni Tato nusandaya dhiya manasvi Tato nusandaya dhiya manasvi Satalumulam sanakarnayeta Satalumulam sanakarnayeta Nabhyam stitam hridariropya tasmad Udana gatyorasitan nayan muni Tato nusandaya dhiya manasvi Satalumulam sanakarnayeta. Navam stitam hridariropya tasmad Udana gatyorasitam nayan muni Tato nusandaya dhiya manasvi Satalumulam sanakarnayeta. ladies? Nabhayam on the navel. Stitam situated. Hriddhi in the heart. Adiropya by placing. Tasmat from there. Udana soaring. Gatya force. Udasi on the chest. Tam thereafter. Nayat should draw. Muni the meditative devotee. Tata them. Anusandaya just to search out. Dhiya by intelligence. Manasvi the meditative. Svatalumulam at the root of the palate. Shanakai slowly. Nayeta may be brought in. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation: the meditative devotee should slowly push up the life air from the navel to the heart, from there to the chest, and from there to the root of the palate. He should search out the proper places with intelligence. Please repeat. The meditative devotee should slowly push up the life air from the navel to the heart, from there to the chest, and from there to the root of the palate. He should search out the proper places with intelligence. Purport. There are 6 circles of the movement of the life air, and the intelligent bhakti yogi should search out these places with intelligence and in a meditative mood. Among these mentioned above is the Swadhisthana chakra, or the powerhouse of the life air, and above this, just below the abdomen and navel, is the Manipuraka chakra. When upper space is further searched out in the heart, one reaches the Anahata chakra. And further up, when the life air is placed at the root of the palate, one reaches the Vishuddhi chakra. Om Jnanatimirandasya Giranjana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Gam Garode Vachalam Pangam Lankayate Girim Yatkipatam Vande Siguram Dinataranam Paramananda Madhavam Sri Chaitanya Ishwaram. The meditative devotee should slowly push up the life air from the navel to the heart, from there to the chest, and from there to the root of the palate. He should search out the proper places with intelligence. So this is a further description of the exercise, you could say, because Prabhupada uses that term in the last verse in the purport. This is the internal exercise method of self-realization. there's two different kinds of exercises here. There's the internal exercise, which we can understand through the Ashtanga yoga system. It's more of an internal process and involves the mind and controlling the life errors, as Prabhupada is pointing out here very nicely in the purport. And we'll discuss that in a moment here. But yesterday we heard so very nicely about the external exercise that has to be there in self-realization. That being, of course, the chanting of the holy names of the Lord. And although Krishna consciousness is an internal process and involves controlling the mind, engaging it in Krishna service, it's also an external process because these senses are being engaged, which is in as compared to previous ages, quite different. In previous ages, Kriteya Dhayato Vishnung, in the Satya Yuga, the recommended process was this meditative process that we're hearing being described here, and which Prabhupada is elaborating very nicely in his purports, and in which the yogi, the devotee of the Lord, would situate himself in a sacred place, first of all. There has to be that. And for obvious reasons, we can't find that in the Kali Yuga. So it doesn't doesn't mix in very well with what we're having to experience in the present age. But in the previous ages, there were such holy places. Of course, they're there for the advanced devotees, still, for the internal advanced devotees. They can go to Vrindavan and still see the spiritual world. But for the common person, the conditioned devotees, even, it's not visible. It's invisible. Instead, one sees just some earth, some water, and cannot appreciate the full potency and experience that's there. Many times, I remember the first time going to India, it was quite a cultural shock for anyone who hasn't been there. The first time you go there, it's quite a cultural or experience. The whole energy, the lifestyle, the communication, the smells, the sounds, it's quite a cacophony of experiences. So, in the mundane eye, as was my experience, it wasn't really that attractive. But in the association of devotees, the whole experience changes. It becomes very exciting. And the more one is experienced, or exposed, I should say, to that experience, it becomes more and more relishable. And we can see it practically, that when people first come to Krishna consciousness, the sounds, the smells, the tastes, the whole sensual experience is quite an awakening. And and we can't fully grasp it. We can't fully appreciate it. But the more you hear it, the more the ears become purified by that sound vibration, and you begin to appreciate it more. Or the more you see it, the more you can appreciate it. Oh, this is God who's taken this beautiful deity form. Or the philosophy is something that may be very difficult to relate to because of our conditioning, and we can't see how transcendental knowledge is beyond all material limitations. It's not limited as we and conditional or relative as we experience in the material world. It's a whole different experience. Or the tastes. Who can argue that when you first taste prasadam, it's quite an awakening, and then the more you taste it, it becomes a wonderful transcendental experience. So the yogis in previous ages were able to bring all of that within themselves. In the previous ages, again, they could bring all of that sensual experience within their being by this meditative process that we're hearing, and Srila Prabhupada is so very nicely explaining how the devotee should gradually move his life energies, his life errors. So again, in previous ages, this was fine. The settings were more conducive to that kind of practice. Tretayam yajato makai, that again, as the ages progress, sacrifices were recommended. And we're going to go in line here because Prabhupada explains that very nicely in the previous purport. Again, in previous ages, sacrifices were recommended. Just as we read in the 9th canto, how, or was it 7th canto, Maharaja Ambarish, he would perform very, very elaborate worship of the Lord. Very elaborate, all sorts of, well, no, that's more of the Dwapara, but in the Treta, sacrifices were performed. Great yagyas, fire ceremonies, nothing like we have here. This is just a little matchbox show that we put on once in a while. And people are amazed by it because it's something they've never seen before, and it's quite an exhibition. But in previous ages, the sacrifices were so much more elaborate. The paraphernalia was much more costly. The ingredients were much more costly, and the mantras were chanted in very precise meter by hundreds of qualified personalities. Nowhere near can we come to that in the present age. We don't know how to pronounce it properly. We don't know how to offer even the grains properly. Instead of offering it to the Lord, we just sort of toss it. Like, how would you like to have something just sort of tossed at you? Right? No one likes that. How would you like someone to have some offering for you and just sort of throw it at your face? No, you don't do like that. But you take the grains and you offer them in a very respectful way. So these little um, seemingly little details are very relevant in the proper execution of sacrifices. What to speak of deity worship? You know, we're of course here in New Dwarka. We're doing our best, and Rukmini and Dwarkadish are renowned worldwide for their worship and offerings. But in comparison, it's very minuscule. So for that reason, Srila Prabhupada writes in the last part of yesterday's purport that all of this sacrifice is possible, kalo dadari kirtanat, that in this day and age, by the chanting of the holy name of the Lord. It's most effective. It's more effective than those derived from the inner exercises of the life airs. These are internal exercises. The external exercises of Nam Sankirtan are much more, you could say, relevant or enjoyable. The experience is greater because it involves, of course, all of the senses. We're engaging the mind, the ears, the tongue, the sense of touch. We're involving, more of the senses are involved. And so the experience is greatly enhanced, especially in this day and age when we're, as Bhagavatam explains, we're so disturbed by conditions that we can't practice in this meditative fashion. So, still, of course, these descriptions are given here so that we can better understand the level of determination and purity that has to be there in the execution of this Eightfold Yoga system, where, as Prabhupada points out here, the meditative devotee should slowly push up the life air from the navel. Prabhupada points out here that there are 6 circles of the movement of the life air. Those 6 circles are the chakras. And the first one being the Muladhara, or the base of the spine. That first chakra is important because it's at that first chakra that one becomes grounded. There's a grounding that has to be done. And the typical Hatha Yoga exercises for that would be Tadasana, right? Standing, where the feet are touching the earth. That touching of the earth is important for grounding oneself. And for the Hatha Yogi practice, that would be closing up that anus hole so that the life air can be controlled, so it doesn't escape, and so that you can push it up gradually, as Prabhupada points out here, that it goes from the Muladhara, or the base of the spine, it goes to the, what is it? You call it Swadhisthana? Or just above just below the navel. No, it's called Swadhisthana, or that area which is in the hips, just below the navel. And there's, what is that, Baddha the yogic exercise in which one is opening that portion of the body so that there's a release of tension. And from there, Srila Prabhupada points out, or he describes it as the powerhouse of the life air. Because this is where we have a lot of energy produced. And from there one raises the life air to the navel area, where again this is where there's certain benefits to bringing it to these certain chakra levels, and Srila Prabhupada points that out in the previous purport as well. But just for our own understanding, that third chakra area, or is it the second one? Swadhisthana. Yeah, it's the second. That is where creativity and personality and desire is developed. And as the yogi pushes that life air up and goes to the next chakra, that would be the Muni Puraka chakra, right? Where one learns to develop vitality and courage. And then above that, Srila Prabhupada points out, one goes to the heart. In other words, from the navel to the heart. And in the heart area, one is understanding how to develop compassion. Now, all of these chakra points are important for the yogi and for personal development, certainly. But again, as we was mentioned so nicely yesterday, the process of bhakti yoga, the chanting of the holy names, all of these things are, all of these qualities or attributes are automatically developed in the person of one who engages in the process of bhakti yoga. Although these yogic exercises, whether it's Tadasana or Baddha Konasana or Vrikshasana or the headstand, shoulder stand, these are all beneficial, certainly, for one who's on this mechanical process of self-realization, and they're internal. Certainly, they're internal in that one is learning how to control the mind and the senses and control the life air. When one reaches the heart area, one is meant to develop a certain ability to understand or feel compassion for other living beings, or if one goes even higher to the, as Prabhupada points out here, the Anahata chakra, which is in the root of the palate, where one is developing the ability to speak from the soul. Or if one goes even further to the Vishuddhi chakra, where one is meant to develop intuition, balance, and wisdom. All of these things and become unbiased in one's thought and basically balanced in one's being. All of these things are certainly beneficial, but they're just mechanical. And if one doesn't do it right, and if the setting is not right, then the whole experiment is finished. The whole experiment is finished. Whereas the chanting of the holy names of the Lord, all success is there. By the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, all success is there. Simply in this process of chanting. Simply by executing this process of Sankirtan. All the benefits are there. All the potencies of yogic practice, all the potencies of the Lord, because the Lord is non-different. Everything is there within that holy name, that whole experience. And one doesn't have to go through all of this exercise, basically. It's just bodily exercise. And again, if one is not careful in the practice of it, one becomes imbalanced, or one has to experience depression, or loneliness, or fatigue. The Manipura chakra, where the navel area is, by controlling the life air at that point, one can battle fatigue and indigestion. It makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense. It's so scientific. When the life air is controlled properly in that area, then the digestion is proper, then the vitality and energy is there for one's work. So all of this, of course, is valuable. There's no doubt. But beyond all of that, and we'll hear about that in the next verse as well, Srila Prabhupada points out that to be engaged in the process of devotional service, Krishna consciousness, is far and above all of this mechanical yogic practice. Although the yogi has to, even though the yogi has to do all of these exercises, he has to make sure that all of the holes are covered. Still, he has to be able to execute it properly. Otherwise, the whole thing is a failure. These are just some interesting thoughts that came to my mind in how Srila Prabhupada was. He doesn't elaborate on it extensively, but the intelligent bhakti yogi should search out these places with intelligence and in a meditative mood. So, are we there? We'll end there. Are there any questions or comments? Yes, Rabindranath Prabhu.
Yeah, you mentioned how when the chakras raise up to different points, they release various qualities. And could you mention some of the references for that? Because I don't remember hearing things like that.
That's in the Patanjali Yoga Sutras.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhu. You were mentioning the different practices of worship, and you stated that in the Satya Yuga it's meditation.
Meditation. Treta was yagyas, fire yagyas. The Dwapara was a deity worship, and in the Kali Yuga it's chanting the holy names.
So I'm just wondering, how vital is it for Prabhupada's literature to go out there and people can actually experience Lord Chaitanya's golden age if the books go out there and people are actually reading and can, whatever they're doing, they can think about the amazing intellectual and practical examples that Prabhupada gives in his books.
Okay, yes. Is that a question or a comment?
No, yeah, it's a question of that it's really important for the books to go out.
Absolutely. People have to be educated. Otherwise they don't know.
And is
These
that
books
a
are
major
meant to educate everyone for the next 10,000 years.
is that a major way of, let's say, devotees getting mercy as well?
Is that a way?
Is it a major way of devotees getting mercy from distributing books?
Absolutely. 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 If you really want the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, then you have to go out and preach. And preaching is distributing Srila Prabhupada's literatures. Because in reality, Srila Prabhupada is doing the preaching. We're just simply the messengers. Our business is just to go out and act as a medium. Let me give you this book, and then that's the preaching. Open this book, and you'll understand the preaching. For me to talk for 15 minutes, half an hour, 45 minutes doesn't mean anything. But if they get one of these literatures, because it's Krishna's words coming through the perfect medium, it's perfect in every sense. Just touching it, seeing it, reading one word, contributing for it, passing it on to somebody else. There's so much benefit. We can go down the list. It's in every way it's auspicious. In every way it's auspicious. Even for the fool who may take the book and I remember in past years we would when we were doing airports particularly, we used to get a lot of opposition from a lot of really terrible demoniac people. They would do so many things. They would defecate in a book and give it back to the devotee, or they would shoot holes in them and bring it back and give it to a devotee who was distributing in the airport. This happened to me a number of times. But still, even such demoniac people, some or other, they're remembering Krishna, and Krishna is going to come into their life somehow, at some point. Maybe it'll quicken their demise by Krishna's mercy, and they'll benefit again in the next life. However, the fact is that there's nothing but auspiciousness to be experienced in distributing these books and being a part of it. Govinda, you had a question?
Yes, Prabhu, you mentioned a few times how if it's not done properly, everything is lost. But is it, if it's done with the intention of pleasing God and becoming self-realized, is it the same as there's no loss or diminution?
There's incremental benefit. Certainly, it's because it's a pious activity. The yogic practitioner, he certainly benefits in some way because it's pious work, it's pious activity, but and there's no loss, as Krishna says. Swapamapyasa dharmasa trayate mohodo bhayat. In the process of bhakti, it's the benefits, the punya that one accumulates is never lost. But for the yogi, he can become very advanced, but make a mistake, and then he falls back and has to start all over again. So it's a much more difficult and arduous journey. All right, we'll end there. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.